For our finished basement space, we've decided to use 4x8 sheets for the walls. They fit neatly down the window well without bending or damaging the board. We also chose to stand the board up for installation as opposed to securing them horizontally. The benefit here is the lack of butt joints. A butt joint is created when two sheets of drywall come together that don't have a tapered edge. By standing the board up, all the edges will be tapered, which makes finishing them easier. Butt joints need more mud to properly feather out the seam because they're raised up. So, our finished basement drywall hang is complete. Now we need to do a thorough check to make sure everything was done properly before the taping begins tomorrow. We want to check to make sure everything has been cut tight to the electrical boxes. Make sure drywall has been properly fastened on the seams as well as in the field. We also want to check to see if they use glue where possible. Check all corner bead to make sure it's plumb and level and has been nailed properly. If you've added a bathroom to your space, you want to make sure that they use moisture-resistant board in the wet locations. I also like to make sure the drywall hangers lifted the board up slightly off the basement floor before they secured them. This keeps the drywall from wicking up any moisture that might make its way onto the surface of the floor. One other thing you might want to consider is using a mold-resistant drywall for your basement, because obviously basements are prone to moisture and being subjected to moisture. So check with your supplier and see what they have that might fit with your situation. They have versions of the product with and without paper. I personally prefer the papered product because it's easier to finish in my mind anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and do a couple quick quality checks and see how our hangers did. First thing to note is that we use screws throughout our basement for our walls. Screws have a better holding power, they're less likely to back out, so we did use these everywhere we can. From a review of our corner bead, looks like everything is straight and level, and there's no twists where there shouldn't be. There are a few spots, however, on the board where we need to add some fasteners. Looks like we got a little light on the holding power, so we need to have them come back and add some screws and nails where we're short there. Looks like our hangers did a good job with the seams as well as the corners. Everything is nice and tight, which is going to make it easier when we go to finish. Looks like one other place they could have done a little bit better of a job is around the wall sconce boxes. They're not quite as tight as I'd like them to be, as well as a few of the outlets. You can see where we've got some torn paper and they got a little crazy on their cutouts. But since they're doing the finishing as well, we should be okay because they're going to have to take care of those items when they go to finish up. We can see here that they've cut out for our sewer cleanout access panel. Any other access panels we have down in the basement, we want to make sure that they've cut out for those, and they've uncovered all of the electrical outlets. We don't want to do that later once things are painted. Okay, so your drywall's been completed now. We've done 3 coats of tape, 3 coats on top of the tape joint. We've hit all the nail and screw heads. We've sanded everything. And now we want to make sure that we've done a quality job. So we're going to go through and we're going to check all the spots, make sure everything's been hit, everything's been sanded. And the other thing we want to make sure is that the guys have come back and dusted off the walls. What happens is when you sand the drywall, you get that dust on the wall. And then when you go to prime it, if you spray it or roll it, whatever, it'll clump up with that dust that's on the wall and you'll get a real rough finish. So we want to make sure we've knocked all that down. Nice and tight, nice and clean. We want to check the floors, make sure those have been cleaned, scraped, vacuumed, swept, and we're ready to go. Because what we're going to do now, after we check this, make sure the drywall is done at this point, we're going to prime the wall. And what that allows us to do is once we get primer and paint on the wall, we can actually see any imperfections that are there. You know, an untrained eye, it's difficult to see any areas that might be just marginal. Once we put the primer on there, we can really see it, and that way we can come back and do one final drywall spot just before they actually paint the final coats on the wall. We don't want to be doing that after the fact because it'll make it a little bit, we'll have flashing areas and we'll have some quality issues in the end. So what we want to do now, like I said, is just go through, make sure everything's been done properly, we've gotten everything sanded, and then once we've checked that out, we know that it's good, everything's clean, then we'll bring in the painter, we'll do a prime coat on everything, and then we can check one last time, have the drywaller come in, do one last final spot and sand before we actually put the final coat on the walls. So let's go do that now. Okay, so the last segment we showed you, we finished up the drywall. We just finished the sanding and the finishing of the drywall. What we said was we wanted to bring the painter in and actually prime the wall so we can really get a good look at the drywall job that we've done. So what we actually did, we brought the painter back in, we painted the ceiling black. As we said before, what we wanted to do on this basement is create an urban feel, an urban loft feel, kind of a modern look. And we wanted to create as much headroom as possible down here. So what we've done is brought the painter in, we sprayed the ceiling, we put 2 coats on it, looks nice and black. We've also had them, after that, we primed the walls so we can go through now and take a look at it and make sure that everything looks 100%. And if there are any spots where we need to bring the drywaller back, we'll do that. We'll get those sanded, and then we'll have the painter come back one last time, put a final coat on the walls, and then we'll be ready to start trim. Okay, that does it for our drywall quality check. Stay tuned for next time in our Finished Basement series for our quality check on trim carpentry.